is now aggressively attacking the establishment that once formed the core of his support. He is saying to what people call the Democratic elites, pollsters, pundits, and even donors that he is not getting out of the race. He's basically said, I don't care what those big names think. The voting public has spoken. I've won the Democratic primaries all over this country, and voters are the people that I'm listening to. George Clooney, a Biden fundraiser, and Representative Pat Ryan, and now Senator Welch of Vermont have all called for Joe Biden to step aside. And since Trump left office in 2021, Mar-a-Lago has transformed into a White House in exile and the nerve center for some of the most extreme elements of the party's MAGA wing. This includes a nearly steady stream of promoters of conspiracy theories that include lies that the 2020 election was stolen and that the Capitol riot was a federal setup. And for 74 years, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization has been America's most important military alliance. Presidents of both parties have seen NATO as a force multiplier, enhancing the influence of the United States by uniting countries on both sides of the Atlantic in a vow to defend one another. Well, Donald Trump has made it clear that he sees NATO as a drain on American resources by freeloaders. He has held this view for a quarter of a century and has stated that if he's reelected to the presidency, U.S. is pulling out of NATO. And the Republican National Committee has expanded legal challenges to voting and election procedures in key swing states since March, when presumptive nominee Donald Trump installed new party leaders with a mandate to pursue his unsubstantiated claims of widespread cheating. In Arizona, Michigan, and Nevada, Republicans are seeking to force election officials to remove voters from the rolls, despite federal law limiting such actions in the months preceding an election. And Wes Moore is working to prevent Biden's, what some call his downfall. And others say while he's doing so, he is helping his own rise. Maryland's governor and the country's only Black governor has been all in for the president amid party despair, courting Black voters while urging donors and the public to stay the course. While many surrogates have stood by Biden as questions about the president's mental acuity has been a topic of discussion, Moore has been among the earliest and most forceful in setting himself on the front line of defense. Moore has promised to go anywhere and everywhere to make the case for a Biden administration and given more than 24 interviews supporting the president since the debate. He's volunteered as both a full-throated advocate for Biden staying in the race and as an envoy to the disaffected Black voters, crucial to a Democratic win. That's the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in Real Time, and this is the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind those headlines and bring you the stories that people are talking about or stories we think people should be talking about. Well, Black folks have been in the news a great deal, particularly around our voting power. A lot of conversations happening in legacy media, in Black media, about Black voters who we are likely to vote for, and what is the value of our voting power. Well, in addition to our voting power, there is something called our buying power. Well, according to one professor, there is a myth. He calls it the myth propaganda. This is a book that he's written, The Myth Propaganda of Black Buying Power, Media, Race, Economics. That's a book written by my guest in this hour, Professor Jared Ball. He is a professor of Africana and Communication Studies at Morgan State University. Also in this hour, returning guest and expert, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, a noted labor economist, author, educator, and political commentator, is going to join us. She knows a whole lot about Black buying power and the economics of the Black community. Excited to talk to Professor Ball and Professor Malveaux about this thing we call the Black buying power. What significance does it have, particularly in this very contentious political season that we are in, and how might it play as the Democrats attempt to regain their narrative and their momentum to do what they say, which is to save this country from another 4 years with Donald Trump as president. When we come forward, we're going to talk to Dr. Ball, Dr. Malvo about Black buying power. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take an auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Diego.
Hi, Diego. It's Jennifer Coolidge. You know, I just want to say your cashback match makes me feel so special. It really inspired me.
That's great. Doubling the cashback you've earned at the end of your first year is what we do.
Well, I'm doubling everything now. Double dating, double dipping, double feature, double header, double whammy. You know, basically double or nothing.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
SoCal on July 14th, Big 3. We're back. The world's greatest basketball in the summer. The Big 3. There's simply no comparison, no competition.
They not like us.
That's right, they not like us. We own the summer with our traditional hard-nosed brand of basketball. The Big 3, founded by Ice Cube. It's professional 303 basketball with former NBA greats and Hall of Fame coaches. Come out to the Honda Center July 14th. Hang with your homeboy Ice Cube and watch the greatest game in the summer. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. It's the Big 3, Season 7, the hottest game of the summer. I'll be in the house with your favorite Big 3 players and Hall of Fame coaches. Get your tickets at big3.com/tickets. Oh, yay.
We are back, and in this segment, we are talking about Black buying power. Black folks have been in the media a great deal recently over this meltdown that the Democratic Party is having, also over the threat of a Donald Trump presidency. Joining me in this hour is Professor Jared Ball. He is the author of a book called The Myth, Propaganda of Black Buying Power, Media, Race, Economics. Also in this hour, Dr. Julianne Malvo will be with us. She's a noted labor economist. I want to start with you, Dr. Ball. First of all, thank you for joining me in this hour. You've written this very important book. Tell us the basics of your premise about Black buying power. What is it, and what is it that we need to know about it that's revealed in your book?
First of all, good evening. Greetings. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you and to have this discussion and to have a chance to talk about the work. The short of it is that we often hear about Black people having what is usually now said to be about $1.8 trillion in buying power, and that were we to exercise greater degrees of financial literacy and responsibility and financial maturity and entrepreneurialism, we would be able to close the wealth gaps and income inequalities and overturn our economic condition, and then have the appropriate levels of money to engage politically or in any other way like any other community. And what I've been trying to show for really over a decade or more at this point is that what we are taught to conceive of as this concept of buying power is a misrepresented advertising and marketing revenue concept that has nothing to do with the actual wealth Black people have, and is really just a marker of money Black people could potentially spend on the products owned, produced, and marketed by mostly white ad buying companies and corporations. Buying power in the phrase buying power, the word power in the phrase buying power does not mean what we are encouraged to think it means in terms of actual economic strength or a potential for us to use any pool of existing money or wealth to improve our conditions. It just simply does not exist. That's not what we're talking about, or what that's not what it actually is, despite what it is represented to be in the press, which is another level of the discussion that we can get to. But that's the initial point that I'm trying to make. Buying power is an advertising and marketing phrase that is meant to help ad buyers direct their ad spending and to accumulate whatever sales they can from a target audience, in this case, Black communities. So they present it as buying power. It's misrepresented in often Black presses and Black targeting presses as an economic strength. And then from that, we get a lot of mythologies around the economy itself and what we can actually do within this economy to change our relationship to the economy.
All right, I think Dr. Malvo has joined us. Good evening, Dr. Malvo. Thank you for joining this conversation. You are a labor economist, so you know a whole lot about the economy and what these concepts mean. Do you agree with Dr. Ball that the concept of Black buying power is just an advertising tool that's used to target those that are trying to get money from corporations and to tell them, hey, there's something out there called Black buying power, and if you give me your money, I can talk to those Black people and they'll buy your products?
Yeah, I partially agree with him, and I partially strongly disagree. The agreement is, of course, he's right. When you talk about the income in the Black community is very different than the wealth. So when you say, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but let's just say that 30 million Black people earn on average $60,000 a year. And I'm overstating because that's families. But if you say that, then you can fluff it out and make it into trillions. And so, yeah, there's an overstatement there because that's gross, it's not net. Do you take out for necessities, rent, blah, 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 utilities, life? So I think that he's right that the number is so often overstated. But I think that he's absolutely wrong to minimize the work that's been done to look at the net value of the Black community. It's not worth. We have $1 for every roughly $10 that white people have, which is not a lot different than in 1910, it was $1 for every $36. So we have not tried to close a wealth gap. However, we do spend money. And the reason that corporate America chases us is because we spend money. We overspend on certain things, and it's not an overstatement to say that we overspend on certain things. We can go back to D. Park Gibson was actually, I believe he was a Coca-Cola executive or maybe Pepsi. I'm not sure. When he wrote the first book about Black consumerism called The $30 Million Negro, back in the late 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my numbers in front of me. Crazy day. But D. Park Gibson wrote that book, and he basically showed where we overconsume. So corporate America, who wants us to spend, should invest in our communities. And he broke it down, and then years later, he wrote an update, and I forget the title, but it was like $60 million Negro. And again, looking at our relationship to consumerism. And so here's my thing, Professor Ball. If we are over consuming, should not those same corporations overspend on us? And that's so regardless of the issue of wealth accumulation, which is important, and everything else, what is our relationship to corporate America? And can we essentially leverage that into support for various things? Here's the thing that I think is really important. We look at, they support everything else. They support the National Rifle Association. Why should not they support the NAACP, the Urban League? And by support, I mean, this is where you and I may be together or maybe not. Don't buy a table at my dinner. Do something to essentially assist the development of Black economic infrastructure. So, you know, we all run to them to get a table at the dinner, to do this, to do that. And these numbers are used. But let the numbers be used to talk about economic empowerment. So I don't think we're too far apart, but frankly, I don't like this that you threw on me in your book. Not one bit. I'll just put it out there. But, you know, just do you, boo.
Okay, Dr. Ball, you do call out Dr. Malvo. You call out some other African Americans that, you know, names that folks may know. Why do you do that? What's your point of calling out these noted African American leaders?
So the point,
he wants to fight. He doesn't. So basically, I'm up for the fight, bro. I'm up for the fight. I'm your elder. I'm a seasoned economist. Bring it.
So I'm not entirely sure what is meant by that. If Dr. Malvo read my book, as it seems that she might have, then Dr. Malvo, you would be aware that I wasn't calling you or anyone out to start a fight. In fact, I was referencing people across the political spectrum, some with whom I agree, some with whom I don't, only to point out the prevalence of the myth of buying power and how it's distributed and often misunderstood. So it wasn't that I was trying to pick a fight with Malcolm X or Dr. King or Amos Wilson or any of the other people, yourself included, that I mentioned or Du Bois or Garvey, all of whom at one point or another adopted or attempted to adapt a version of this myth, and all of whom were working off of a flawed understanding of where this myth was coming from. And that's all I was saying. So it wasn't.
Hold on, let me read what you said that calls out her name. It says, what magnifies the impact of buying power claims is that they are largely promoted by and even the product of a Black commercial press who would transform the original concept into one designed to specifically target Black audiences, beginning with John H. Johnson and carried throughout Black commercial media to today via the National Newspaper Association, Target Market News, through popular journalists, academics, and media personalities, such as the owner of this station, Tavis Smiley, Tom Joyner, and Dr. Julianne Malvo, and also traditional civil rights organizations, including the Urban League and the NAACP. The myth has been propagated for two primary reasons. And then you talk about the reasons. The first, less known and garnering far less attention in the overall conversation, is that buying power is used as a means to attract advertising revenue by convincing white corporations of the potential in the Black consumer. The second reason for so heavily propagating the myth, far more popular and far more mythological, is as a means of collective uplift of empowerment. So go ahead.
No, so as I was attempting to say, so again, as you just read there, this was not a hostile call out. It was I was citing examples of popular pundits, academics, activists, journalists, etc., who have helped spread the mythology. And then in the context, of course, of explaining the history of the myth, its origins, and why it does not fit. May I finish this one point? Because I just, it's very important that if I could, because I was doing it in context of comparing the mythological claims surrounding buying power with the actual economic data and reporting that is being produced by economists about the condition of Black people in the United States. So the second edition of the book has a foreword from Dr. Derek Hamilton, who is one of the leading economists in the country, on dealing with these and related issues, who supports the work and its general argument. I cite a lot of economic data. So Dr. Malveaux pointed out, made reference to Mr. Gibson and a book from last 75 years or more ago, written by someone in advertising and marketing, which is exactly my point. Not dealing with the actual economic conditions of the time. So at the time Gibson was writing that book, in, I believe, around the 30s and 40s, you have economists who I cite in my work from that time to now, who were critical of that idea and that concept and that argument, and were laying it out back then from the economic point of view. So today, when I'm citing work like the Runner-Court paper, which shows that Black wealth cannot be collapsed given the starting point of enslavement, that we need massive federal involvement and redistribution of wealth if we're going to actually engage the real problem. That's what we're talking about. And I'm trying to get people away from the citations and the sources Dr. Malveaux was just using, which come from advertising and marketing, which is where the buying power concept comes from. It is not an economic concept. It is not used in economic analyses that are directed at explaining and understanding the condition of Black people or any other community in this country or around the world. So that's what I'm trying to explain through the myth. It was not to start a fight or to call people out. And as Dr. Malveaux and you could attest from just reading it, there was no hostility or inaccuracy involved.
Well, let me just say this. The book is called 70 Billion in the Black. That's one of the books. That was released in 1978 by D. Park Gibson. There's another book called The 30 Billion. I think that's the one you're talking about, Dr. Malveaux, called The 30 Billion Negro. That was released in 1969. And I guess for me, what I'm trying to get at, and I think what Dr. Malveaux is saying, there's disagreement, is this concept of a myth. So Dr. Malveaux, Dr. Ball says it's a myth because folks are citing folks like this D. Park Gibson, who's not an economist, who's a marketing guy. But I'm still grappling with this concept of the myth. Do you agree that there is this myth around Black buying power?
Dr. Ball has a point about whether we're talking about income or wealth. And those are two different things. And Derek Hamilton, by the way, Dr. Ball, just for your information, since you throw in slings, is a dear friend and a mentee. So, if you want to fight, brother, I got it. Seriously. Now, in terms of, if you know anything about, I'm a pugilist. I don't play. When you start dropping my name in your book disparagingly, it's a fight.
It wasn't disparaging. I wasn't disparaging you at all.
I am talking. You had your turn. Guess what? Now it's mine.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's like that. D. Park Gibson was a marketing executive who worked with one of the civil rights organizations. And what he was attempting to do, and I consider him an icon, really, in terms of looking at Black buying power. Black buying power is different from Black wealth. So for that point, I do agree with Dr. Ball. But I also think that this myth thing is misconceived. We do have that much buying power and we use it and we should leverage it. We should leverage it. If we're buying so much Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, whatever. I mean, I wrote a piece years ago about we should boycott everything that's red because we overspend on red stuff. Our buying power must be recognized, but buying power and wealth building are two different things. So that's, I think, where we do agree, but there's a whole lot of disagreement and there's a whole lot of disrespect up in here.
Dr. Ball, again, I'm just trying to get to some, and you all can agree to disagree. You are the historian. Dr. Malveaux is the economist. Do you have any, do you believe there's any truth in her statement that there is Black buying power? Or do you say that is a complete false statement?
It's misunderstood. As I said, the myth is that buying power speaks to an economic strength that can be marshaled to achieve some sort of political power or to change the relationship Black people have to the country and the economy.
Well,
and I'm saying,
would you buy her explanation when she says Black buying power is not Black wealth? And I would think she would agree that we should not use the term Black buying power to suggest that Black folks are in any way on par, have equity, if we made better choices, could work our ways out of this disparity between black and white, the black-white wealth gap.
I'm saying, if I understood your last point there, I'm saying that is incorrect, and that's part of what the mythology is there to create. It's there to produce this idea that poor people are poor because of their own, again, financial illiteracy or spending habits, etc. That's not why. That's part of what I'm saying is the mythology. Buying power as a concept is strictly a marketing and advertising concept meant to connect. So it originates from the Selig Center in Georgia, and they say in their own data that their goal as an operation is to unite corporations with ad buyers. That's their goal, to expand the business community in Georgia. They produce these buying power reports that target Black and other communities in the country for what they are estimated, as in their own reports say, and projected to spend on certain products. This is to help ad buyers buy certain ads in certain locations to target consumers. What it's reported as in the Black press and in a little bit in this conversation today, and this is why Dr. Malveau's name was mentioned in my book, as it's mentioned as some sort of economic or political strength. It is that's where the mythology comes in, and buying power takes on an entirely different and meaningless definition in the way it's reported to Black audiences. So if we're really interested in making real change, we should be targeting the wealth that's produced in this country that we all contribute to as we consume in a 70% consumer-based society. So instead of telling Black people you're poor because you spend ignorantly, we should be telling Black people, don't necessarily change your spending habits. We should have a political system that rewards you for the wealth you create through spending. Because if you don't spend, there is no wealth that is generated and there is no wealth to redistribute. So we should be focused not on the mythologies of one point, whatever. Can I just finish that? Can I just please?
No, we have to go to break.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Got you.
Hold
no
that
problem.
thought on the other side. We'll let you finish.
This brother is hilarious. I have to say.
To respond. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. House Democrats, led by Black Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, held a closed-door meeting on Tuesday to discuss whether President Biden should remain in the race. The caucus came to no consensus, with some, like Representative Maxine Waters of California, who is Black, saying the president deserves our support. Others have urged the 81-year-old commander-in-chief to step aside in favor of younger leadership. Attorneys representing former NFL star and Southern Miss quarterback Brett Favre have asked a federal appeals court to reinstate a defamation lawsuit against a former ESPN commentator. This comes after a lower court judge in Mississippi threw out a lawsuit against Shannon Sharp, writing that comments he made on a sports broadcast were protected under the Constitution's right to free speech. Sharp, who was Black, accused Favre of theft in an ongoing investigation into the misuse of millions of dollars in connection with a child welfare agency scandal. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
There's a stall if your drive takes you through Santa Clarita on the 14 northbound, and it's sitting right after Newhall Avenue in the second lane from the left. A stall as well in Mission Hills, 405 northbound at the 5. That's in the left-hand lane. That's got you slowing down at San Fernando Mission. You have a crash in West Covina on the eastbound 10 at Pacific Avenue. That's in the carpool lane, so you're looking at brake lights starting at Baldwin Avenue. If you're heading on the Hawthorne stretch of the 105 eastbound, just after the 405, you do have a crash in the carpool lanes, but that one's jamming things up at Sepulveda Boulevard. A stall in Norwalk, 605 northbound after the 105. That's in the right-hand lane. And a stall Big Rig in Silver Lake on that 5 southbound at Fletcher. That conked out in the right-hand lane.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Blindster is a family-run business that began in 2010, and we've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters and received over 100,000 five-star reviews. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The next opportunity for you to evaluate Bronny James and his NBA future happens today at 4 p.m. LeBron's son and the Lakers rookie team will play the Miami Heat in the final game of the California Classic in San Francisco. Bronny sat out Monday's game with a sore left knee, but he will be in the lineup today. You can catch the game live on ESPN2. After the game, the Lakers rookie team heads to Las Vegas to get ready for the NBA Summer League. The Sparks lost at home to Minnesota last night. The Sparks are now 5-16 in the WNBA. They are 1-10 since June 9th. The Dodgers were pounded by Philadelphia last night. Dodgers right-hander Bobby Miller gave up 9 earned runs in just 4 innings. Congratulations to Corey Thompson. He's the new men's basketball coach at Winston-Salem State University. Thompson played at the HBCU school from 1998 to 2002. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Following the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Are you concerned about the youth in our community? Family connections are crucial for youth and young adults, especially those in crisis. Sanctuary of Hope is dedicated to improving the lives of these young individuals through bonding, healing, and relationships. Join us on July 11th at 9:30 a.m. at Holman United Methodist Church for breakfast and an inspiring conversation on family connections. You'll meet some of the dedicated Sanctuary of Hope team, community members who have been a part of crisis resolution, and young people whose lives have been transformed by support and care. Learn about the Sanctuary of Hope's programs that assist youth and young adults, and discover how you too can be part of the solution. For more details and to register to attend, visit thesoh.org. That's www.thesoh.org. Join a movement that's making a real difference.
Many homeowners and businesses use man-made stone as an alternative to traditional stone for their countertops. Handling these products puts workers' lives at risk. Without proper conditions, workers could die from the terminal lung disease silicosis. Employers must supply respiratory protection and water systems. It's essential to wet stone when cutting it to prevent breathing in dust. Do away with dusty, deadly practices. Visit WorkSafeWithSilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
We are back, and we are joined this hour by Dr. Julianne Malveaux. We've been having maybe a heated discussion about Dr. Jared Ball's book about the myth of Black buying power. And I'm just trying to make sure the audience has a clear understanding. Obviously, to noted professors, academics can disagree about topics, and this may be just one of those topics that we don't reach agreement on. But you wanted to finish your point, Dr. Ball. We had to go to a break. That's the rules around here, but go ahead, finish your point.
No, I think what I was just trying to say, and thank you for that, was simply that what we should be targeting, instead of the mythological 1.8 trillion that we're said to have and misuse to lead to our continued poverty, the 150 trillion in private wealth that's produced in this country every year, or the 450 trillion in private wealth that's produced around the world, or the fact that, as economist Richard Wolff just said recently, only 3% of the population in this country are employers, leaving 97% of the rest of us to be employees. Those are the relationships that we should be looking more closely at and critically at, and move away from the mythologies about our economic condition that are based on not on actual economic data and analysis, but based on marketing and advertising claims and products. That's what the small hope of my work is meant to do.
But it seems like, Dr. Malvo, these two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think you and I in particular would agree that we need to focus on the wealth that's created by the top 1% of this country. We need to focus on how we close the wealth gap. We need to focus on the way that Black folks are dehumanized around money, how we spend money. I think Dr. Ball, we're in complete agreement with you on that. I think perhaps the disagreement is coming from the notion that set of principles is incongruent with the notion that Black people do have money to spend, that somehow is a myth that's just been created by these sales folks. Is that your understanding?
Well, it's not. It's again.
Let me
I thought you were talking to me.
For a little while. So let me talk, if you don't mind, Areva. I love you.
I'm trying to understand this.
Okay, so there are two principles here. One is the issue of the wealth gap and the concentration of wealth in this community. I don't disagree with Dr. Ball about that. We can look at the wealth gap. We can look at the way that Black people have been marginalized around wealth. And as you know, with my work around reparations, we can look at the ways that we have had limited access to the ways that wealth is created. And in fact, the conspiracies to keep us from wealth. So there's no disagreement there. Here's what my disagreement is. First of all, don't be throwing my name in your book, dude. Just don't do it. That's number one. Number two, the Black consumer block is important and influential. And that's what D. Park Gibson back in the day was attempting to show, is that if whatever cola is making money off Black people, then whatever cola should invest in Black people. That we are a consumer block as well as a marginalized community. The back in, I think, 69, the $30 billion Negro was about how much money we spend. And I don't think that we should marginalize that. I think we should talk about the ways that, as an example, if we chose to boycott some organization or corporation, it would basically show the power of our consumer dollars. And I think it's really important. So there's two different concepts. Yes, we have to deal with closing the wealth gap, but also if we spend money with the oppressor, we must get the oppressor to invest in our communities. And if they choose not to, we have tools at our disposal. We can say, we're going to boycott this, you know what? We can, and one of my disappointments with our civil rights organizations has been that they hesitate to call for boycotts to make a point. When a FedEx driver is beaten in Mississippi because he is trying to deliver a package, do his job, should we not say, okay, maybe we're going to use UPS for a minute? So the power of the Black consumer block, I think, and I won't speak for Dr. Ball because obviously we're not on the same page, but the power of the Black consumer dollar should be so we leverage certain things. So we're talking about two different things. And I don't like the word myth. So that's my trigger there. It's not, we do have consumer power. And it's for someone, a so-called learned, whatever he is, to dismiss our consumer power, I think is insulting to Black consumers.
What do you say to that, Dr. Ball? Do you disagree? Let's use the FedEx example, that if an African-American FedEx worker is brutally beaten and calls for justice, calls for a response from the company, and they don't give a response, do you think it's appropriate for African-Americans to say, we are going to boycott, we are going to stop spending money with FedEx? We're just using this as a hypothetical. Would you agree with that?
Sure. The question is, to what extent would that be effective? And so part of what we've seen, certainly post the killing of George Floyd, is the attempt of corporations to spend $50+ billion to buy off, in essence, the Black community through supporting, as they point out in their own documents, financial literacy programs, and to encourage Black entrepreneurialism as a response to the violence and hostility Black people suffer. And again, that's been part of the historical cycle of the mythology that I'm talking about here. So instead of, for instance, Dr. Malveaux, just out of curiosity, instead of the vitriol you're espousing towards me, have you actually read my book? And then, excuse me,
vitriol is yours, not mine. And that's your interpretation.
You just keep. I just want to ask a question, though.
No, you don't get to ask the questions. It's my show. I ask the questions.
Yeah,
I do have a question for you. Do you believe? You said,
I'm not playing.
Both of you, come on, you're adults. Come on, we're trying to educate people about this really important topic, and I don't want us to, go off track. Do you believe, Dr. Ball, that there is buying power in the Black community?
Not in the conventional, and not in the way most of us understand it to mean. So, for instance, again, that's why I keep saying buying power is a marketing and advertising mechanism.
So how would you describe the money we earn and the money we spend?
It is very little, and it is used at most as a measurement as it's the way we're paid and what we spend is equivalent to what the origins of these reports were meant to study and manage. That is, how much can you pay working people so that they can buy the products that they're helping to produce, but not earn enough to be quote unquote.
See, Dr. Ball, you're packing that answer. I'm just going to, again, the listeners and viewers, when people spend money, they equate that with buying power, whether you're Black, white, red, or green.
And that's what I'm saying is incorrect. That's what my work is trying to get them to know.
When you spend money, can you just give us your definition without packing the policy in it? When we spend money at the store, what are we demonstrating?
We're demonstrating our ability to enrich those who own the products we're buying.
Okay, so that's it for you. That's all we're doing.
Yes.
And Dr. Malveaux, you would say that is powerful. Our ability to enrich those people.
And Brother Man has a temerity, first of all, to describe me incorrectly. So you're wrong. But secondly, the $50 billion that people said they pledged post George Floyd was not $50 billion. It was money that enriched them. I think that Black-led organizations maybe got 5 of that $50 billion. But thirdly, and most importantly, we can make a difference when manufacturers do things to hurt us. We can withdraw our dollars. Look at the 1968 play, Days of Absence. We are a significant force. No, we're not all that, but we are a significant force. And I think that Dr. Ball, and I'm trying to be respectful, although he has not been, because I have not described him as vitriolic or ignorant, which he has been. But Dr. Ball has essentially diminished the importance of Black buying power, which can influence some policy decisions. Not all. We know that the wealth gap is what it was in 1930 for deliberate policy reasons. But we can make a difference, and I refuse to allow Black people to think that we can't. When we purchase anything, when Black women decided to, as an example, Areva, you and I remember this, boycott St. John for a minute. Remember, they start running to our sororities and talking about, we're with you. Maybe that's a surface example, but the issue is that our buying power does make a difference. It doesn't necessarily close the wealth gap, but in some cases it can narrow it.
Okay, first I'm going to ask both of you to be respectful to each other. You both are brilliant. You both have made excellent points. This is a complicated topic, obviously, and you don't agree on it. I'm just trying to make sure the viewers and listeners have an understanding. So when we come forward and continue this conversation, is there such a thing as buying power, and what does it mean? Or is it, as Dr. Ball said, one giant myth? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward. All right, we are back. Dr. Jared Ball is joining us. He is the author of a book called The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, Media, Race, Economics. Dr. Ball, folks who are going to go online to look for your book, they're going to learn about your theories about the Black buying power being a myth. Where do we go from here? What would you like to see happen in terms of the way we think about the wealth in this country that Black folks have, or the lack thereof, the spending that Black folks are engaged in on a daily basis? Help us understand what you see as the pathway forward.
So we don't have wealth, and we have very little, and it's headed by all accounts to zero by 2050, I believe reports say. So what we should be targeting instead of the mythologies that are promoted to us around our economic condition or what we can do about it is public policy that seeks to redistribute the wealth we do help create through our consumption. So instead of some of what has gone on here, what we should be doing is better understanding the economy. In the 70% consumer-based economy, the country doesn't generate wealth for those who end up with all of it if we don't spend our money. So we should, instead of, again, telling people to spend more responsibly or to blame poor people for being poor, we should encourage the wealth that we generate through our consumption be redistributed, not through the goodwill of a corporation, but through the public policy demanded in at least a nominal democracy. So elected leadership should be producing policy that says, listen, so if we're referencing, our generational stuff, I keep saying I'm very Frank White with money, as going back to the King of New York movie, where if to make it more appropriate for our audience here, if money is being made in this economy, our labor, our Black labor, should be rewarded through a redistribution of the wealth that creates.
What would that look like?
It would look like it would look like, instead of us creating Bezos level billionaires, it would look like free healthcare. It would look like good schools. It would look like homes being improved. It would look like, instead of $150 trillion ending up in the private accounts of personal owners of the economy, that money would be redistributed, because if as been said, 20 billion takes care of all of the houseless problems in this country, we more than generate enough from that when we buy our lattes and click on our websites. So if healthcare needs are not being fully covered, as is obviously the case, that money should be developed, and that money exists. It exists.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, Dr. Ball, but there's a tone, I guess, and maybe that's why Dr. Malvo is being triggered, as if somehow we as Black folks are in disagreement with you that there should be mechanisms in this country to redistribute wealth so that Black folks are benefiting from the wealth created in this economy in the same way that white folks and other folks do. So when we are fighting for,
that's where we've heard
Black elected officials, we've heard Black leaders, we've heard Black lawyers, we've heard civil rights leaders talk about free health care, talk about access to home ownership. Yes, we have.
That's why we have what we call Obamacare, which is the right-wing Republican platform program. We don't have universal health care. Obama took that off the table. That's what I'm saying. No, but that's what I'm saying.
But what I said, let me finish. What I said was, your tone suggests that they're not Black leaders out calling for policies that would provide free health care.
If I could just step back.
I'm going to let Dr. Malvo step in for a minute, because she's been silent. She's been quiet. Go ahead,
Dr. I have been quiet. I have allowed this man to be disrespectful and rude, and we're not.
Don't make it personal, Dr. Malvo. Let's just
it's not personal. It's not personal. Here's what. None of this is personal. We're talking about the economic condition of Black people, and the economic condition of Black people is predicated on a number of things. Obviously, we live in a predatory capitalist society that exploits us regularly in any number of ways. I don't disagree with Dr. Ball about that at all. What I disagree with are a number of things around how he chooses to deal with Black people and our choices. We live in a predatory capitalist society, okay? So now, what can we do? We can't affect public policy with our spending. It's not the best way to affect it, but we can affect it. We can call out those corporations that are most exploitive. And more importantly, what we've seen with many administrations is that we can change things. As an example, the $35 cap on insulin prices is a boon to Black communities that came from Joe Biden. I'm not in favor of everything Biden does, but let's say we know that there are a disproportionate number of Black people who are diabetic. That is an economic boon, and we should not diminish that, nor should we ever diminish the power of Black consumers. So the word myth bothers me probably more than anything else, because Black spending power is not a myth. It's a reality. How much difference does it make? Not as much as we like, but it does make a difference. So we really do have to honor our people. And I've written, I've been writing for 50 years. So I've written about, these fairs we have where, you go, it's about financial literacy, and then you have all these people selling spit as you go in. That's not necessarily useful. But what is useful is for us to talk about Black people supporting Black people in consumer markets, because we live in consumer markets. We are consumers. This is a consumer society, as Dr. Ball has said, so I'll give him a small point of agreement. Our economy basically is driven by consumerism. So the question is how 70% of it is of our GDP is consumption. So the question is, how do we harness our consumption to make it useful to our community? So I think that words like myth and the very disparaging attitude toward Black consumers is not useful. I think what's useful is for us to talk about what we want to see and how we can get the results in our economy that we can get. We can't withdraw our labor as the play Day of Absence suggested. We cannot withdraw our labor because we have to eat, we have to live. But there are things that we can do, and we can withdraw our dollars from certain platforms. And I think that that's very effective. In addition to
Dr. Malvo, we're running out of time here. Dr. Ball is the author of this book, The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, Media, Race, Economics. I'll give you the last word, Dr. Ball. You have a minute.
No, I appreciate it. My work was just so wildly disrespected and misrepresented. It's unfortunate. So I encourage people to actually read the book. It is not a disrespect. It is an honorific to the Black consumer who is being misrepresented and often misled through false reporting and bad economic analysis in a lot of press that targets them. It is the myth. If Dr. Malvo or anyone would actually read the work, they would be less triggered by what I mean by the word myth. And what I'm saying is the myth of buying power. Buying power, as is popularly represented, is mythological. What we can do needs to be based on what is actually in our what we actually have access to, and we're being which we're not accessing when these mythologies are misrepresented, when the economic condition is misrepresented and the phrase buying power is misrepresented to demean Black consumers, to suggest that they are poor because of their financial illiteracy. That is factually incorrect. So what I would encourage Dr. Malvo to actually read the work, to act as a scholar and a doctor and an elder and read the work and then produce a critique based on what you've actually read.
We're out of time, guys. Dr. Ball,
how dare you? You are rude and disrespectful. I am a scholar and an elder.
I'm sorry, we are out of time. This discussion, we all have something to contribute to this conversation. I'm an economics major from the University of Chicago. Dr. Malvo is an MIT trained economist, so she is more than qualified to have this conversation about economics. But thanks to both of you for joining me in this hour. Really interesting, dynamic conversation. Pick up Dr. Ball's book, learn more about the work that he's doing at Morgan State University. We appreciate his voice as we appreciate the voice of Dr. Julianne Malvo. The next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers in the Rao Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.